to state it. Questions or comments about all of this so far? Yes, John.
One of the best things that I ever did was wrap a vehicle.
Wrap a vehicle. That's another way.
It was a lot of money doing it in the beginning. It's about $3 grand if you get a good wrap.
Right.
I'll tell you what, man, I had people every time I'd go somewhere, they'd track me down wherever I was.
That's another piece of marketing. Everybody hear that? Wrap a vehicle. Another way to do it. Thank you for sharing that. So, okay. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about multiple channels of engagement. If all you do is email marketing, they're going to hear from you once a week. If you do email marketing in Facebook and you do it correctly, they're going to hear from you once a week on their email. They're going to get 1 or 2 of your posts, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. If you do a good YouTube channel, they're going to get a notification about a YouTube channel. So here's the thing about a YouTube channel. You can get people to subscribe, or when you send out your email, you can send them back to your Facebook page. So what we're trying to do is talk to them, touch them, make deposits in the emotional bank account from several different ways. If you sent out 3 emails a day, they would hate you. But you can post on Facebook 3 times a day. You can tweet as many times as you want. But you see how we're starting to think about that? Multiple channels of engagement. Whoops. Here are some possibilities for you. And it all adds up to Toma. And again, we don't have time. Yelp. You should be registered on Yelp. YouTube. You can easily create a free YouTube channel. Facebook is free. Twitter is free. Local search is free. You just need to build your business, build your website so that you come up. Blogging is free. Pinterest is free. Email is $30 a month. Community involvement. If you do cause marketing correctly, you're actually making money and acquiring customers at the same time. Advertising costs you money. Direct mail costs you money. Publicity is free. Word of mouth is free. So again, what we talked about in the very beginning, are you willing to make the investment of your time and energy? It's not about money, and you probably have to hire some people to do some of these things, but the more input, the more ways you make deposit into the emotional bank account, the more Toma, the more of that top of mind awareness you're going to get. And so let me make one other quick comment here, or a quick concept for you to think about. When you achieve Toma, when you achieve top of mind awareness with your customers, you automatically achieve what's this thing called, I call customer share. So now you think about it. So most people, most businesses traditionally have thought about market share. So I'm going to use you as an example, Don. In Clinton, Iowa, if there was $1,000 being spent on instruments every year, or music, whatever you sell, and you got 40% of it, you would have 40% market share. It's about how much money is being spent in a geographic area. That's sort of an unsophisticated definition. But you, as a small independent retailer, you don't care about market share. What you should care about more intensely is customer share. So Don says everybody who shops with him, if I'm one of Don's customer and I spend $1,000 a year and I spend $800 of it with Don, Don has 80% customer share. And that's a much easier concept for us as small independents to get our arms around, right? So what we're trying to do is wrap up their business. How do we do it? We show them the love. We do all the things that we're talking about here. You get them into your store through cause marketing. That's a reciprocity play, right? You get them to be part of your frequent buyer program. That's a way to bring them closer to you. And then you just show them the love. You stay in front of them. You talk to them about things that are important to them. And as you gain that top of mind awareness, they naturally buy with you. So if I need a new guitar, I don't think, where am I going to go? I say, when can I go in and see Don? I need supplies, I need lessons, I need equipment. When can I go see Don? And the tighter and the deeper that relationship, the more of that customer share Don is going to get. And that's what we need to do, right? That's the outcome. The outcome, just take all of your customers right now and think if try to think of how to explain this. Think of all your customers right now and think of that if you wrapped up almost all of their business. Would it make a difference in your business? You bet. This is how to do it. The outcome is incredible. The work needs to be done to reach the outcome.
How do you block the bad social media that you don't want to happen, such as Topix, T-O-P-I-X?
Right?
And that's Yelp is one.
Yep.
If you're on there, big box store would have an ad run right beside of
Yep.
what's going on there.
Welcome to life in the 21st century. Yep.
Then they pick you up and they put you on their site, and if you go claim your identity, more stuff happens around your name. If you don't claim your identity,
I understand what you're asking there. You know, and we don't really have time to go into all those things. But let's talk about Yelp. You know, I mean, so if you get a bad review on Yelp, you know, the way to handle it is to go on Yelp and say, I am so sorry that that happened to you. Please come in and I will try to make it better. You know, you can't, you know, I mean, it happens. But now here's something else that I can tell you for a fact. You should never get a bad review on Yelp.
we had a competitor put a link from eBay.
Absolutely.
It said, a customer came to my store today and bought this from Showtime Music. Look what they paid for this $69 guitar, $700.
Yeah.
And of course, somebody responded and said, sounds to me like the customer was a dumbass. And then somebody else said,
so Harry, so, you know, I mean, that's just life these days, isn't it?
Yep.
That is just life these days. So, you know, I mean, I suggest that you respond to it in a positive, proactive way. But, you know, what can you do? There's nothing you can do. That's just life in the world today.
Yeah.
Yelp? Go ahead. You were going to say something.
The thing with Yelp is you can actually respond to any of the reviews. So if you get a negative review, you can respond to it. Here's the thing to keep in mind. If you've got a store and you've got 20 glowing reviews and 1 negative review, it just means that it's a real site. I mean, if I go and I look at that, I just think, oh, it's real. You know, here's one knucklehead who's being a jerk, and everybody else loves this store. Now if there were 10 bad reviews and 2 good reviews, then I would take that into account.
And here's the other thing that I know, is that the stores that give superb service all the time, the stores that are on it, that are doing all the things we're talking about, their customers respond. You know, you look at our Facebook page, we've got 75 recommendations, you know, and we didn't solicit any of them. I need to solicit some. So if any of you like this, go on our page. But, you know, I mean, that's what happens naturally. If you're doing things the right way, people will respond. If you're not, you know, like Facebook, if you're not getting any unsolicited testimonials on Facebook, you really need to look at your customer experience. You really do, because when you give that great customer experience, people feel the need to show you the love. You show them enough love, they'll feel the need to do it somehow back. So, you know, all those little things that we talked about really make people respond. So, promotions and special events. So there's really 2 tracks here. There's 2 tracks. One is you want to gather as much, you want to get customer share. So if I'm a musician, you want my business, all the business that I normally give, right? That's the first part. And that happens through Tomo. Once I'm a customer, how do you get me loyal? So anything I need musical comes through you. But I'm suggesting to all of you that that's not enough. You want even more business, don't you? And the way to do that is to proactively draw people into your store. And you draw people into your store through promotions and special events. It gives you something to talk about. It gives them a reason to shop. And, you know, so there's, I'm surprised I don't have any more slides about promotions and special events. But, you know, you all know, you're in the business. You do lessons. Lessons every week. Somebody comes into your store. Isn't that a wonderful opportunity? You can do customer appreciation events. You know, and you notice I didn't say have a big sale. You can have clearance sales. In fact, you should have 2 clearance sales a year. Move out all the old stuff, free up the cash to buy the new stuff, but that's different than a promotion. A promotion is a value-added event. that people come in and they're coming in because you're showing them the love. They're coming in because you're giving them something. So when you do a student recital, that's a event, isn't it? It's a value added. You don't have to have promotions. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make, particularly inexperienced independent retailers, is that every time they have a promotion, they feel the need to put a store-wide discount on the event because they're afraid that nobody's going to come in if there's not a discount attached to it. And that's bad thinking. So if you have a customer appreciation event, you know, you can have pockets on sale, but you don't want to put the whole store on sale because the minute you start to do that, people start to what? They start waiting. You're training your customers to wait for the big sale. And that's not what you want to do. So let's spend just a couple of minutes here. Anybody have any favorite promotions that they like? That they do? Yes, what do you do?
We do a musicians swap meet and a flea market.
A musician's swap meet and flea market. So you give everybody the opportunity to come into your store and sell their own stuff.
Well, we actually own a adjoining lot, and we allow anybody free to come in, bring your table, bring your gear, clean out your basement,
Right.
set up.
And so now a short-sighted person would say, what are you doing? You're allowing people to sell musical instruments when you sell
all my
them.
employees did that. They said, what do we gain?
And what do you gain?
Monthly, weekly, daily, thank you. How
Right.
much fun we have. When are you going to do it again?
When are you going to do it again? So when I said, what do you have to gain? He said, monthly, daily, weekly, people are saying thank you. When are you going to do it again? Do you have big days when that happens?
The first one we didn't, but subsequently, past 2 years we've got.
Right.
It gives
Good days.
It gives you an opportunity to clean out your basement.
It gives you an opportunity to clear out your basement too. Sure, absolutely. So you see, now that's what Gordy's doing here is he's flipping things on its head. He's inviting people to come sell what he sells at his place.
The local news and paper, they love it.
And the local news and paper love it. So great, thank you for sharing that one. Sure. Well, anybody else? Yes, sir.
We did a backyard concert. Had 4 bands volunteer their bands to come play. Had a group of our, because we have a huge backyard behind our store, had our customers actually volunteer. I didn't even ask them. We had 3 or 4 customers come and volunteer to clean up everything in the backyard, to mow and hedge. It was absolutely amazing because I was planning on doing it, or paying someone to come in, and my customers brought tractors and trailers, piled everything up.
That's great.
For disposal, and it was, we had people bringing all kinds of equipment to help out that.
That's wonderful. So let me just sort of make an observation. Everybody heard what he said, right? But when your customers are volunteering to do work for you, what it says to me is that, what's your name, sir? Will. What it says to me is that Will has built the relationship the right way. They're looking to help Will out. Will is giving something, they're giving something back. This is what we want to happen. We keep talking about the feeling. We want our customers to feel a particular way. They clearly feel that way about you, and that's wonderful. Thank you. That's a great promotion. Anybody else? Yes. Alan.
We had sort of a high-profile pro player come in one night. She's been kind of new on the scene for us in the last year, but she's a fabulous nylon string player. So we covered up the front windows, turned the front to a stage. 7 o'clock at night, it was invitation only. We mailed out a whole bunch of invitations, handwritten. Please come join us. Customer appreciation. We had all kinds of snacks. We had wine laid out, entrance through the side door, you know, this kind of thing. We didn't try to sell them the thing. We gave away strings, we gave away sticks. If you're a drummer, pick out some sticks. If you're a guitar player, pick you out some strings. Here's some Kurt Mangan strings. We're selling those now. Y'all will like them. And we videotaped the whole thing. And we had more and more people come in and tell us, not only were they thrilled to be there, she played for 2 hours nonstop. This introduced her to the community. They were curious about her. We videotaped it, cut that up into segments, and started putting them on our YouTube channel. And I guess the big thing is one of our really favorite pro players walked up to me in the middle of all this had tears in his eyes. And he said, this is so wonderful. I never get to sit down and listen to another musician. And next time you do this, I'd like to come do it.
There you go. Everybody hear that? You see, there's a thread here. They're all reciprocity plays. You know, there's a clearance sale. And, you know, I mean, clearance sales, that's definitely a withdrawal from the emotional bank account. And you want to pound it. You want to really talk. I mean, you want to talk about it regularly and get people in. But all three of you, you know, you did something nice for your customers, and your customers responded. That's how we as independents do it. That's how we make people feel that way. And I'm going to keep, you know, we'll keep going back to that whole thing. When people know us, when they feel like they know us, when they like us, when they trust us, they spend more often and they spend more money. So there's two tracks. Go ahead, Susan. Sure.
Tell them about the Pro Spinners Club. Generally, there's a strong correlation between
that's wonderful.
Pro Spinners and what they could do with their
Yeah. So what I told you, we sold so many yo-yos, right? I mean, it was just totally out of control. At one time, we had 8 professional yo-yo players who would go into schools and do this, you know, show, you know, to rock and roll music, yada, 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 yada. But so one of the things that we realized, and there's a very definite lesson here for you, is that we knew that we weren't selling yo-yos. We were creating yo-yo players. And there's a huge difference. And when you create yo-yo players, you also create yo-yo collectors. And so if the kids didn't get better, they stopped playing. So it was incumbent on us to continuously improve their skills. So we had this thing called the Pro Spinners Club. And then when they first bought their first yo-yo, we made sure that they bought the right yo-yo for them to start with. We made sure that we cut the strings to the right length, because if they were too short and the yo-yo hit the ground, it would break and they wouldn't be good anymore. And we made sure we sold them a trick book so they could learn the thing. So that we bundled it all up into the, what did we call that package? The Pro Spinners Pack, and then we gave them the thing for the Pro Spinners Club. And so here's what happened. Every Tuesday, and then it got to the point where it was every Tuesday and Thursday, then it got to the point where it was every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, they could come in and they would show somebody who was at a higher level that they knew how to do the tricks. And when they did the tricks, they got a stamp on each of the tricks. And as they completed the levels, they got a special yo-yo. So like after you completed the beginner level, you got a fireball yo-yo. And after you completed the second one, you got a raider yo-yo. And then you got to grade the kids. So all of a sudden they were the cool players because they were the advanced players and they were, you know, marking the kids at the intro level. But, you know, what was important was then they were coming into the store every single week. And they were improving their skills and they were enthusiastic about playing yo-yos. And that's how we built it. And that's why I was going back when I said earlier, you're not in the business of selling instruments. You're in the business of creating passionate musicians. And you know, and so some of your passionate musicians are going to be poor. And they're not going to be able to buy expensive instruments. And they're not going to be able to spend a lot of money with you. That's okay. That's okay. God bless them. You know, I mean, you still have an obligation to nurture that passion. But then you're also going to find people who are affluent, who love to spend big dollars. And you just need to recognize that all of them are wonderful assets to your business, and you need to show them the love. You need to do everything you can to make them happy and make, you know, and scratch the itch. That's what we always, that's the term that we use with kite flying. We're there to scratch the itch. Boy, these kite flyers, they couldn't get enough. They couldn't quit thinking about kites. So what's our job? Give them, scratch that itch all day long. Scratch that itch. That's what we're supposed to do. So let's go back and sort of wrap this up. 2 things that we're doing to get more transactions per customer. One is generate customer share through achieving top of mind awareness. When you do that, you get a certain amount of business just because they're going to spend that money on musical equipment, instruments, and lessons. The second thing is to proactively draw people in. You do that through promotions and events. So there's 2 tracks to the whole more transactions per customer, and they all lead to increased sales. When they come in more often, They'll shop more often. Not only that, but more importantly, they'll stay with you more years. You build the relationship the right way, they're going to stay with you forever. As long as you keep doing things the right way, they're going to stay with you. And again, let's talk about it. How do you really build that lifetime value of a customer? More transactions per customer. So, 5%. How many of you think that if you do what we talked about, I know it's a bit overwhelming, but how many of you believe that if you do what we talked about in the last hour and a half, that you can increase the number of transactions per customer by 5%? All right, good. How many of you have raised your hands 3 times right now? All right. I mean, you're honoring me by giving me a day of your life here. If you raised your hand and said, I can see 15%, what's the only thing keeping you from that money? Not doing it. That's exactly right. Not doing it. So it's sort of the next piece of the puzzle, and we're going to talk about it after the break, is how do we create a whiz-bang staff? Because what I'm hoping that you leave here feeling empowered to do is A, build your sales. Boom, 15, 20, 30%. You know, there's 15% just in sales training. There's 15% in doing what we've talked about with marketing. You develop a great staff on top of it, then you get the ability to leave your business. You get the ability to, you know, take time off and build a better life and do all of those things. So that's what we're going to talk about after the break. After the break, we're also going to give away 2 more tickets to the Retail Success Summit and a staff development kit from the Retail Mastery System. So if anybody has any questions about anything, please let me know. Otherwise, dessert is served, right? So we have officially sort of concluded the marketing portion of this day. Does anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts or observations that they want to share, or questions that they want to ask? All right, I hope that means that, I hope that's because everything was explained well. Yes, Gordy has one.
I have one, but I think it's going to lead in to your staff. So
Okay.
I'm going to wait.
You're going to wait. Okay, good. Because we'll have time for questions, questions about the whole day when this is done too, before you work on your action items. So you've all seen the 15%. Just about everybody raised their hand. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Let's go back to that whole focus time. I want to sort of reinforce, I want to bring you back in your head to the fact that 15, 20, 30% is possible. Don's up 30%. He got the Retail Mastery System in November. It's possible. It's there for you should you choose to do the work. The biggest obstacle that I see to people doing the work is finding the focus time. Finding that time. One of the reasons that I strongly encourage you to invest in the Retail Mastery System is because it gives you a map. Everything that I showed you here today, you can do yourself. You don't need the Retail Mastery System to create a training program, sales training program. You don't need a Retail Mastery System to do cause marketing like you learned it today. You don't need the Retail Mastery System for any of that. You can take what you've learned here today and apply it. But if you have the Retail Mastery System, you can get there quicker. You'll do it better. You'll do it more quickly, providing you do it. And that's what focus time is all about. So, whether you choose to invest in the Retail Mastery System or not is entirely up to you, of course. But my encouragement and my strongest desire for you is that you find the time to do it. Do what you're learning here today. Get that 15%, get that 20%, get that 30%. It would make me so happy. Like I said, I'm happy to challenge you. I'm happy to sort of jump in your face about things. What I'm hoping for is that email saying, wow, after we got back from Nashville, we did this, this, and this, and it turned into this, that, and that. So stay focused on your outcomes. How to develop a whiz-bang staff. Here's your goal. Your goal is a team filled with superstars. Now, when I talk about superstars, I don't mean the best salesperson. I mean people who know what you're trying to do. They get it. They get who you are. They get your philosophy. They're focused on the customer, and they deliver consistent service. Because here's what I know for a stone cold fact. It's sort of Murphy's Law of retail. So if you've got 5 people on your team, and 3 of them are pretty good, and 2 of them are come see, come saw. You know the type, they show up one day, the next day they've had a fight with their girlfriend and they're a mess, and one day they're good, the next day they're not. And one person is what I call a chump, a retail chump. They're clerks. They're just there, they're a warm body, holding up space. When that $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 customer walks in your door, who are they going to get? The chump. It happens every time. They're not going to get your best salesperson. You're not going to get a chance to talk to them. The chump's going to walk that great customer. Just what I know. So, having said that, you're independents. We're independents. Every single customer matters. Every single transaction matters. Every single interaction matters. Every single one. And it took me a long time to realize this. My staff, my history with managing people was it went up and it went down. It went up and it went down. It was really about luck. It was really about luck. Why? Because I didn't know how to do it. I really didn't know how to do it. And it wasn't until, I started talking to you earlier about my story, about how things started to change, how I went and I learned from Harry Friedman. I learned from tape courses. I learned a lot from Susan. Susan taught me a lot. That it sort of changed, and there was really, truly, literally a before and after picture of me as a manager. You know how you watch late night infomercials, or the weight loss? You got the large person, and you got the small person. There's a before and an after picture of me. The before picture, I was totally stressed out all the time because I never knew what kind of service my customers were getting. I didn't know. It was spotty. It was uneven. It gave me a lot of heartache. It gave me a lot of headaches. The after picture, I knew that it was going the right way. The before picture, people would come up to me and say, "Bob, I was in your store." And the first thing I thought, okay, how'd it go? I wasn't sure what kind of experience they had. The after picture, when they say, "Bob, I was in your store," I'm like, "Great, how'd they treat you?" Because I knew how they were treated. The system, the processes, the structure was in place, and that's what I'm suggesting to you. That when I made a commitment to changing how I was as a manager, that commitment, that process took me about 18 months, and I had to lose a couple of long-time employees. But when it was over, when I came out on the other side, my life was so much better. The service my customers received was so much better. Our profits were so much better. Our business was so much better for it. And you can do it too. So if you're stressed out about employees right now, one of the things that you're going to leave here with is a process for creating a whiz-bang staff. So there's 5 steps. And you have to think of this as a chain. And a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? You miss one of these steps, you're going to miss a lot of the power of the process. So the first step is to find them. You're going to learn how to recruit people so that you get good applicants into your business filling out applications. The second step is to hire them. Now, this is how I used to do it. So, somebody quit on a Thursday and I needed coverage on a Saturday. I was in a panic, of course, so I put an orange and black sign in the window. What did the orange and black sign say? Help wanted. Help wanted, that's exactly right. So the first person that came in the door, I'd stick a mirror under their nose. What was I checking to see? If they were breathing. That's right. If they were breathing, they were alive. What did that mean? Hired. They were hired, that's exactly right. And if they showed up 7 days in a row one time, what happened? They were assistant manager. All right, now why are y'all laughing? Because there's truth in it, isn't there? We set the bar so low, and again, I'm not wagging a finger anywhere in this whole thing because I've been there. You know, I mean, the bar was set so low. That's right. Oh my goodness. I mean, you can steal from me. Just show up on time. You know, just make sure you're there. So you're going to learn how to hire people. Training. It's so important that you train people. If you don't give them skills, you can't expect them to be great. Coach them. Training them is not enough. You have to constantly nurture people. And then finally fire them. You know, some people don't work out. For crying out loud, get rid of them. Okay, so Cosby, how many people are here in the room? 110, what is there, 60 businesses probably? 65, okay, 65 businesses in the room. So I have done this program hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, and I still love doing it. But let me just say this, here's what I know, is that there's 65 businesses in this room. My guess, my official prediction, is that there's going to be a half dozen people who are going to lose their jobs in the next week. Here's what happens. It's not that I'm such a great speaker or anything like that. You're going to sit here for an hour and a half and you're going to go, he's right, he's right, he's right. And what's going to happen is you're going to feel permission to let somebody go. How many of you have somebody you need to fire right now? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so a dozen people are going to lose their jobs this week. All right? This is going to happen because I get the emails. I did the deed. That's what I say. I did the deed. And it feels great. Yeah.
I get some of your business cards to take back with me.
Hey, am I right? So the Retail Success Summit, Bill, one of our big fans, you know, he's like, he and his brother come every year. They come 5 years in a row now. And what Bill said was, he says, we always fire somebody the week after the Retail Success Summit. They always do, every year. You know, it's just, you know, they start thinking about it, and you get obsessed about giving great service, and then all of a sudden, anything less than superb doesn't cut it anymore. Jonathan has the Retail Mastery System, and what he was saying is, he says, man, I'm kind of spoiled now, because I'm listening to this stuff, and all of a sudden, every tape I listen to, the standards get higher. And I can't accept anything less for my customers. And that's what's going to happen here today. You're going to go, yeah, so why exactly have I had him on my team for the last 3 years? Guys didn't wait. So anyway, so that's the process. And that's what you're going to learn about here. It's not hire and hope.
Basically it.
It's about being proactive and systematic about finding the right people and giving them the skills and nurturing them. And if they're not working out, getting rid of them. So leadership takes responsibility. This is the most important thing that I learned the hard way. If you want a great team, you better do the work yourself. People pay attention to you, don't they? So if you tell your team that they watch your feet, not your lips. If you tell your team that the customer is our most important, you know, responsibility, but your friends come in and you drop whoever you're talking to and go talk to them, they see that, don't they? If you say, man, it's so important that we keep the parking lot clean, and you walk over 5 trash bags on the way into the parking lot, it says something. You say it's important that we close the store correctly, do the open and closing checklist to standard every day, but when you have to leave early, leave the store trashed, it says something. You need to take responsibility for the actions you want your people to take. And that's so important. They watch your feet, not your lips. You want a great team, you have to be a great business person. Isn't that the beautiful thing about being a business person, though? You get an opportunity to grow. You don't grow, your business doesn't grow. You don't change, your business doesn't change. You want to be better, you get better, your business rises with it. It's a beautiful thing. It's great. You know, and the marketplace responds to it. You know how well you're doing by the amount of money you make. If you're doing well and you've got raving fans and they're coming into your store spending lots of money, it means that you're doing things right. It means that you're doing things right. So, you know, it's responsibility. Responsibility equals control. When you take responsibility for your business, for your staff, for your marketing, when you say, it's not up to the economy for things to make me better, it's up to me to make things better, that's when things start to get better. You sit around waiting for things to turn around, well, you could be waiting a long time. There's plenty of money in the economy. You just need to go out and get it. There's plenty of good people out there. You just need to go find them. So step one is to find them. Yes, sir?
Can I share something, another quick?
Yeah, real
It's actually
quickly.
real
Yeah.
fun.
Okay.
Okay. before I left the store, and this goes for a partner and my 2 or 3 employees that are working today, but before I left the store on Monday afternoon, I placed this empty carton, paper carton there. Everybody still, it's here,
Right.
for those of you to see it. It's still there today. This is a live shot from my store. It's an empty paper carton, and this is just something I've been reiterating to my partner and my staff for many weeks and months about caring for the site of the store itself.
It is still there.
And I guarantee I'll check every day. It will be there when I get back there next Monday. You know, so when I raise my hand and somebody's going to get fired, I can fire the staff. I can't fire my partner, but I can.
Right. That's funny. Thank you for sharing that. That's kind of brave, actually. So I'll tell you what, here's what we're going to do. Let me go through the whole thing, and then we'll take questions at the end, okay? Because what I don't want to do is run out of time. And, you know, when there's a time, I'll say, are there any questions now? And we'll do it that way, because I don't want to run out of time. But that was great. Thank you very much. So the first thing we want to do is define your ideal employee. When I say define, I don't mean tall, short, fat, skinny, black, white. I mean, what kind of characteristics do they possess? Because, you know, Zig Ziglar talks about the difference between meaningful specifics and wandering generalities. That's what we're talking about here. You know, unless you know exactly what you're looking for, you're going to have a hard time finding that, right? So let's talk about just an on-the-floor salesperson. You know, I mean, one of your associates. What characteristics, do you want in an on-the-floor salesperson? Anybody?
Self-starter.
Self-starter. Very good. Thank you, Don. Anybody else? Friendly. Sure. What else? Well, I heard something over there.
Committed.
Committed? Beautiful. That's a great word. Thank you.
Engaging.
Engaging is good. That's a great word. Thank you. Enthusiastic is another word. What else? Yes?
Good command of the English language.
So articulate would be good command of the English language. I'm looking for words, but articulate. Yes, you want somebody or communications that has good communication skills. Positive.
Confident.
Yes, positive, confident. Those are great words. Thank you. What else?
A creator.
A creator. Okay, what do you mean by a creator?
Someone that can look around and think ideas to come up with and follow.
Okay, all right. So creative, sure. Okay, what else? Fun, sure. That's a great word. Energetic. What's that? I heard someone. Honesty, integrity. Those are 2 things. Sure, of course. What's that? Conscientious. That's a great word too. But you see, so you all have an idea what you want, right? You got to write it down. Write it down. This is so important. If you have an action, if you're taking action items, which I hope you are, write this down as an action item. Create your ideal employee profile. That list, as we go through this process, you're going to see how that list applies. You know, and you don't know, I don't know what's right for you. Some people really want a fun environment. In that case, fun is the right word. You just need to find what's right for you and your business. That's what you're looking for. But this list is going to be an important part of how it all works for you. So again, you can't recruit, you can't go out and find somebody if you don't really know what you're looking for. And that's how most of us do it. That's the orange and black sign. Hey, come on in. I need somebody right now. So what are we talking about doing? We're talking about recruiting here. Getting more people applying and getting better people applying. It really becomes a question of the numbers. You know, if you put out an orange and black sign and you need somebody in 2 days and 3 people come in the store, what are the probabilities that you're going to get a superstar? Slim, right? But if you recruit effectively and you've got 12 hot prospects to choose from, the probability that you get somebody great is going to go way up, right? So what we're talking about here is proactively recruiting, really getting a lot of good quality people into your store. So what I'm suggesting is that you want to put on your recruiting hat and really, really pay attention. You're always looking. You're always looking. So here's what, you never know where that next great employee is going to be. So when you start thinking the way that I'm encouraging you to think, you're always kind of looking, right? So you have a waitress or a waiter that you always wait on. You always sit in their section. And then one day, you say to them, look, I hope that you're happy where you are. However, if you ever want a job, please come see me. Now, I know that you all hire musicians. So rather than so what you do is you keep an eye on your local music community. And whenever you see somebody who has these characteristics, somebody who you like, and you go, that guy's a great guy. That's him? God, not this idiot. Then you say, hey, I'd love to have you come work, or I'd love to talk to you. You see? And then what starts to happen is you get this hot prospects file. People start to apply with you. You're always looking for great people. You're not always hiring, but you're always looking for great people. You're always wearing your recruiting hat so that you're building this file so that when it's time to hire, you're not starting from scratch at that particular moment. And I learned that, you never know where your next great employee is going to be. One day, so many years ago, when I still had the Mackinac Kite Company, before I met Susan, I was a single guy living in a party town. So, I didn't cook my own breakfast. I went to McDonald's every morning. There's a McDonald's right next to my store. The world's only seasonal McDonald's. That's a dubious distinction at best, but the world's only seasonal McDonald's. And I always stood in Glenda's line, because Glenda was unfailingly pleasant. Always. No matter how bad the tourists were, she was friendly. And so one day I'm standing in line and somebody quit on a Thursday and I need somebody on a Saturday and, I'm all stressed out about everything. And I get up to the front of the line and I said, Glenda, will you come work for me? The words just came out of my mouth. And how they stand behind the register at McDonald's there. She looks up and she says, I thought you never asked. We were just in Mackinac City over 4th of July. We used to have a little place up there. Glenda is still there. If you call the Mackinac Kite Company right now, Glenda could tell you exactly how much she has sold year to date. Glenda absolutely understands her function is to get out on the floor and make things happen for the customers. She is one of the best salespeople I have ever run into. And, she was there for 3 years. She was right in front of me. I missed the opportunity. So, always, I'm encouraging you to think about where they are, the people who are coming in, the kids who are, becoming accomplished musicians, but who are really nice and kind and who have all these characteristics. Because the characteristics become the bait with which I lost my clickers. There it is. Become the bait that you attract your next superstar with. Again, it's always about the customer, and it's always about finding your next superstar. So what we're trying to do is get that hot prospects file nice and big and fat, so when it's time to hire, you're not starting from scratch. Now, having said all that, I absolutely understand that you're busy people, and I've thrown a lot of information at you here, and you're probably going, okay, and you're going to forget about recruiting. So having said that, let me give you a great little format here. This is what we're going to talk about real quickly is how to write a red hot help wanted ad. This is a format that Susan and I developed when we needed to hire a vice president for stores, and the guy who was attracted to this format and who came to work for us took a $40,000 a year pay cut to come work for us. Why? Because the words, the format sold him on our company. So here it is. This is actually a case study. We know the owners of both of these businesses, and they ran on the same weekend. They are similar, although not identical businesses, and they ran in the same part of the world. This ad ran in the town south of us. This ad ran in our town. First ad, sales help. Casual furniture and patio sales 30 to 40 hours a week, including Saturdays. Must have experience selling quality casual furniture. Is that a good ad or a bad ad? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs down. That's exactly. He's giving all the reasons why people wouldn't want to work for him. And who has got experience selling quality casual furniture? Not too many people, right? He got 2 applications. Now let's take a look at this side. So now this actually, Mike Lizagor, who became our vice president of stores, worked for us for several years, then went to work for this high-end appliance store. He came to me and Susan and said, can you guys help me write an ad like the one that got me to take the big pay cut? And we said, sure. So we sat down and we created a list. We created a list, just like we started to do with you. Now, here's the format. First of all, there's a headline, and the headline talks about what the position is. If you can put an adjective with it, it's even better. So a customer-focused sales professional will attract a higher quality person than sales help. Now, in the case of Beacon's Appliance, their salespeople, if they were good, could make up to $100,000 in spiffs and things like that. So that was an added benefit. So we said, want to make 40, 50, up to $100,000 a year? And, I know some of you are going, nobody's making $100,000 a year in my store. That's okay, you still need to have that subhead, right? Then it says, then the format goes, so there's headlines, and then if you are ... Self-motivated, results-driven, willing to go the extra mile, friendly and outgoing, detailed and organized, burning with a desire to succeed. Where did we get those words? What's that?
Customer profile.
That's exactly right, from our list. You see, that's where the list is. That list attracted the people. That list attracted the right people. Then we said, the next part of the format is, we offer paid product training, medical and dental, paid vacations, 401k, a real cool place to work. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but we don't offer a 401k, we don't offer medical and dental. I want to suggest to all of you that you offer something of value. So tell me why I should work at your store. Anybody?
Product discounts.
Product discounts. That's a wonderful reason to work at your store. What else?
Coolest job in town.
It's the coolest job in town. That's a wonderful place to work. A reason to work there. That's right. Now we're talking. You see, now you're thinking about it. What else?
Flexible schedule.
Flexible scheduling is one of that. That's sure, of course. Thank you. What else? I heard something back there. Meet professional musicians. Absolutely. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you very much. What else? I mean, isn't it cool to work in the coolest store in town, but the coolest job in town, work with music.
You get to build drum sets.
You get to build drum sets. You get to do all that. That's exactly right. If you don't know why people should want to work with you, I suggest you talk to your best employees and say, hey, why do you like working here? And they're going to go, boom, 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 boom. Those are your bullet points. And then you notice it says no sales experience required. Now, I understand that the job asks for a professional salesperson, but here's what I would suggest. And so we can have this conversation, but we're not going to beat it up. We'll have it in a little while. I would much rather see you hire non-musicians and train them on your instruments than hire musicians who are idiots and give your customers bad service, right? So, this is what Mike said.
All musicians are idiots.
Oh, said all musicians are idiots.
It's a known fact.
It's a known fact. What Mike says, I can train people about all their high-end appliances. I can teach them product knowledge. I can teach them the basics. I can't teach them how to be self-motivated, results-driven. I can't raise them over. I can teach them. And, and I absolutely understand that even though kites, some of them were very technical and there were a lot of things to learn about them, even though I understand that, the kites we sold weren't nearly as technical as your instruments can be. I do know that when I hired kite flyers, I had problems. Right? They only sold what they wanted to sell. They brought their bias to everything. And so you have to sort of figure out how that works for yourself. But there were problems, and finally I got to the point where I was like, I'm getting rid of these guys, and I'm going to bring in other people and train them. I've had the same conversation many times with owners of sewing and quilting stores. Some of them contend that you have to have passionate quilters in order for them to be successful salespeople. Other people are like, I would never hire a quilter to work in my quilt store, just because they bring their baggage and all of their stuff to the sales process. So, again, that's going to be up to you. But here's what I can tell you is that this piece of this content in this format will bring in high quality prospects like nothing you've ever seen. It's just crazy. In fact, in the staff development kit, there's a letter that somebody sent to us, and she said, Bob, I don't know whether to thank you or not. I've always had a hard time attracting high quality candidates, but we created a Red Hot Help Wanted ad, and we had 80 people apply. And you know what she said? She said, and so what I want to ask you, is it a pain in the neck to sift through 80 applications? It's a good pain. That's exactly right. And yes, it's a pain in the neck, but here's what I would suggest, is that it's a lot more painful to sift through the 40 applications and then interview 10 or 12 and then interview 3 or 4 times and get the right person than to get the wrong person in the first place. I mean, there's just nothing worse than a bad employee, right? And then you got to deal with them for a while, then you got to fire them, then you got to start the whole process over. Most people don't start until the very beginning. When you recruit effectively, when you have this Red Hot Help Wanted ad, you get high quality prospects, so you're starting with good raw potential. Now, how can you use this? You can use this format several ways. In the very beginning, the very first retail success summits we did, that's one of the exercises. We spent 45 minutes and everybody wrote their own Red Hot Help Wanted ad. We think it's a foundational piece of the puzzle because you create it once and you use it again and again and again. When you need part-time seasonal help, you whip it out. When you need a new employee, you whip it out. If you know you're growing, you whip it out. You modify it, you change it, you make it better. Here's what you do. You can take it and turn it and make 4 to a page and turn it into a bag stuffer. You know you're going to need some part-time seasonal help for the holidays? You know, you just start putting them into everybody's bag. You send it out in your customer, in your emails to your customers. You say, we're looking for part-time seasonal help. If you know anybody who wants some extra money for the holidays and a discount on instruments, come on and see me. You can use it on Craigslist. What we do at Whiz Bang Training is we never go farther than our personal friends. We create this, whatever the position is, we do this exact exercise, and we send it out to our personal friends. Our personal friends, they're nice people, they're accomplished. They have nice friends who are accomplished, and we always get high-quality applicants just by passing this around. So you can use it so many different ways. Here's another way to use it. You get rid of that headline, customer-focused sales professional, and you put this headline on it. Always looking for great people. And you put it up 2 or 3 different places in your store. And so what happens is Chris is in my store, and Chris is looking at that thing, and he says, hey, that's me. That's me. I think I'd like to work here. So Chris comes up to me, we have a conversation. I'm not hiring right now, but I take his application. If it's no good, throw it away. If it's good, I put it in the hot prospects file, and when it's time to hire, in the time to interview, I talk to him. Does this make sense? So building this thing once is so important. Now, if you have the Retail Mastery System, there's a whole report on it, walk you through it step by step. If you choose not to get the Retail Mastery System, you can go online and just get this report on how to create a Red Hot Help Wanted ad. It's an incredibly cool, valuable tool. Another reason to recruit is when, we're going to take the questions at the end, okay? Another reason to recruit is when you recruit, you take away some of their power. Your staff cannot hold you hostage. Anybody being held hostage here? I'm the only guy who can fix that kind of amp. They're not going to do anything to me. So at one time in my business, my wife, my father, my father-in-law, my brother, and 3 of my best friends all worked for me. Ouch. Right? And every single one of those people had a little piece of my hide, didn't they? And I'll never forget it. I had a beautiful dog, Buddy, and every day, twice a day, I walked Buddy in this beautiful woods, and I wasn't walking my dog anymore. I was always mad at somebody. You know how it is, right? You have problem employees, they start to suck up your mind. And I'll never forget it. All of a sudden, I had this moment of clarity. It was like, wait a second. My business is growing like crazy, and something needs to be done. there needs to be one sheriff in town. And I have a choice. Either I can be that sheriff, or I have to give it up to somebody else. And so I had to go toe to toe with one of these people. It wasn't my wife. I was a smart man. But, you know, Susan wouldn't have put me in that position. But I had to go toe to toe with one of those people, and that person backed down, and everybody knew it, and made an enormous difference in my business. And I would tell you right now, as a guy who owned a retail store for retail business for 19 years, I would much rather work every single hour for months on end than let anybody hold me hostage. Because the minute that one person starts to hold you hostage, everybody else sees it, and it diminishes your ability to lead. They're all watching it, aren't they? So it's just, and so when they see that person at the counter putting in the application, and so Carol and I are laughing, and I'm looking at the application, we're having a nice conversation. Jimmy and Joni over there, who are thinking about holding me hostage, they see that, and it kind of takes some of their power away, doesn't it? When they see that you have a plan B, it really sort of keeps them in line. All it does is keep people honest. But it's an important part of the process. So that's recruiting, why you should constantly recruit. The next thing you have to do is hire people. Here's how the interview. So the interview is an incredibly important part of the process, and it's a skill. It's a skill that most people don't have. Here's how I would interview. Amy? Oh, Amy's hired. Right? I mean, she's attractive, she's got a nice smile, she's looking me in the eye, she's got a firm handshake. I didn't know how to interview. Right? If Amy could carry on a conversation, if you could keep it going for 3 or 4 minutes, you were hired. I didn't know. How many of you have been trained? How many of you consider yourself skilled interviewers? A couple of you. Good. But the vast majority, not. Why? It's not something we're taught how to do, right? It's a skill. It's an important skill because that's what separates the good people from the bad. So now here's I'm going to give you the 3-minute or the 4-minute or the 10-minute interviewing lesson. So first of all, it's not about Amy being friendly and Amy having a firm handshake and looking me in the eye. It's about the interview and is to determine if the person has the qualities needed to be a superstar. So where do we find the qualities to be a superstar, anybody? In the list. That's exactly right. You see how we keep coming back to the list? The list is key. So what you want to do is, So what we want to do is we don't want to ask closed questions. A closed question is a question that can be answered with a yes or no answer. So let's just sort of create some questions here, sort of create a theoretical situation. So I had a toy store, kite store, that was, toy store. What was the number one characteristic I looked for? Fun. That's exactly right. I was looking for people who were fun. So a closed question would be, do you like to have fun? They say yes or no. If they say no, they're too stupid to work at my store. All right? Okay, good answer. That's what I call a good answer, right? If I'm interviewing 12 people and somebody gives me a bad answer, it's a good answer because it means that I've eliminated one. You got to hire one, you got 12, you got to eliminate 11. The good answer, thank you very much. I would respectfully wrap up the interview, send them out the door, and move on to the next one. An open-ended question, however, is a question that helps you get deeper. So let's use the example of fun. So let's say I was talking to a teenage boy that I was, we get a lot of teenagers that work for us, and I said, so somebody help me with a question that would help me determine whether somebody was fun. Yes, what would you say?
Tell me what you like to do when you have free time.
Tell me what you like to do when you have free time. That's close, but that's not what I would ask. But that's very close, yes?
What do you do for fun?
That's exactly what I would say. I say, what do you do for fun? Okay? That's simple, right? I'm trying to dig deeper here. Now, if I was talking to a young teenage boy and he would say, dude, I scored 90,000 in Halo 2 yesterday, that's what I call a good answer. right? Our merchandising philosophy was colorful, quality, hands-on fun. We didn't sell video games. Nothing against the kid, but he should work at GameStop, not at my store. So that's a good answer. He was eliminated. Now, let's say I asked, what do you do for fun? And they said, I love to juggle. Since we had a juggling department, and our merchandising philosophy is quality, colorful, quality, hands-on fun, now I'm getting a little tingly, right? This is good. So then if you're taking notes, write this down. Then I would say, tell me more. Tell me more is a powerful couple of words. And now, if they said something like, oh, I started a juggling club at my school, now I'm in love. Right? Because one of my key characteristics is fun. One of them is self-starter. I mean, these are all the sorts of things. So you see what we're doing here? We're asking questions that help us go deeper. It's so important. Now, all the questions don't have to be words. For instance, I have a friend who, or a guy came up to me, an acquaintance. He was the manager of a grocery store. And, you know, in grocery stores, they want people who are fast, as we do, right? The stuff comes in the back. The deal is get it marked and get it on the floor. But what he would do is he would tell the applicant, hey, go to the customer service counter and they'll call me and I'll come get you. So he would go and he would shake their hand and say, come on to my office and we'll talk there. What was he doing? What was he doing? That's exactly right. If the person is 3 steps behind them by the time they get to the interview, how fast is he going to be when he gets on the job? You see how we're thinking about it? When you start to think about your characteristics, you can start to create situations and questions that help you get to the bottom. A guy came up to me and he had a construction company. And he says, you know, Bob, what I like is I like people who pitch in. So what he would do was he would put a load of lumber next to his truck. And he'd say, come on and we'll talk about it. I got an emergency run. They need some lumber at this job. We'll talk about it in the truck. And so he'd start to load up the truck. If the guy stood there and watched him load up the truck, that was a good answer, right? So here, let's just find some sample questions for you here. Because in the staff development kit, which somebody is going to win here in a second, there are 75 sample questions. Okay, so here's a question about problem solving. We try not to say, may I help you here at Acme Widget Store. What are some other ways that you might greet customers? You see, what you're doing is you're asking them to solve a problem on their feet. You see, the question is always built around the thing on the list. Getting along with others. What would you do if you had a problem working with one of the other people on the staff? You know, so that really starts to reveal things. Or tell me about a time that you had to get cooperation from your coworkers. Or an example would be, tell me about a great customer service experience you've had recently. And if the person says, you know, if the person can't think of anything, it means that customer service as a concept isn't on their radar at all. But if the person goes, you know, I was at the bakery yesterday and this, and this happened, you know, then you've got somebody who thinks about customer service. And then you add, tell me more, and by the time you're done with the conversation, you're going to know a lot more about them and how they think. So what you're trying to do with this whole interview process is you're taking your list, you're creating questions, you're asking them in the same order. You create a custom sheet, you know, Microsoft Word document, and when it's time to interview, you print them all up, you ask the same questions in the same order, so you're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, and you will get your best people. And because you're doing it that way, because you're doing it systematically, what's going to happen is you're going to become so much more skilled, and you're going to find the questions that really work and the questions that don't, so it just becomes a question of perpetually tweaking and making it better. Does that make sense? Yes. Does anybody have any questions about recruiting or interviewing? Does that? Yes?
With the, I noticed on your sample,
Mm-hmm.
you have them either email or fax it in. With us, I always have them bring it in because I'm wanting that driven person.
Yep.
Is that
That's fine, absolutely. And if appearance is important to you, then by all means you should have people bring it in. You know, again, everything is different. Beacons, they just wanted to, you know, sort of sort through things before, you know, otherwise they just didn't want people coming into their store. So yes, asking them to bring it into your store in person is absolutely appropriate. One of the things, if your people do a lot of correspondence, you may want to have them send you an email with their resume. Why? You're seeing if they can write. You know, if the person writes a really crappy email to you, well, that's good to know, isn't it? You know, they can be the friendliest person in the world, but unless you choose to work on their writing skills, you're not going to get the, you know, I mean, that's an impression, right? Somebody sends out a bad email, that's an impression. Somebody sends out a good email, that's an impression. So you just said that's a great question. You just need to work it so that it works for you. Great question. Yes?
Yeah, we have a university town with a large university, so I have a lot of people coming in all the time and saying, are you hiring? And first question, if they can send somebody else in to ask for an application, no, we're not.
Right.
If they're not dressed appropriately, no, we're not.
Yeah.
And then we don't do applications. I say, would you please bring me a resume? So if they bring a resume back, and it's crummy, you go to the circular file,
right.
And then I keep the ones that look decent, and I've cut out a whole lot of people.
You know, and so, Louise, well, I would recommend that you have an application. You know, because an application can get you a lot more information than a resume can. One of the things that, you know, again, in the retail mastery system is a customized or a customizable application. So you sort of craft it so that the things that you want are brought out and the things that don't make a difference go away. But you can get a lot more information from an application than a resume. Susan's got something to say.
Yeah, I do have something to say. What I would do is if you want their resume, have them do their resume, sort through the resumes, figure out who you want to interview, and when they come in for the interview, then have them fill out the application.
Okay.
Or have them fill out the application ahead of time and email it to you. There are questions you can ask on an application to get really important and valuable information that will not show up in a resume, like, are you a convicted felon? You can ask that. You should ask that. It doesn't mean that if they are, you should hire them, but it's good information to know. So.
Absolutely, yes. So one more comment, and then we're going to move on. Yes, thank you. Good question.
Main question I asked, where do you see yourself in 2 years?
Okay.
Oh, I'm hoping to be on the road with my band, and we're going to make it big. And I know I don't want to go through the expensive training.
Did everybody hear that? One of her questions is, where do you see yourself in 2 years? If they say, well, we're going to make it big in my band, she's not interested. The point here is that you're thinking through the process. This isn't hire and hope. You're not going, oh, God, you're breathing, Louise. Hallelujah. Can you be here on Saturday at 9 o'clock? That's what we're moving past. So, great question. So, then hire for attitude, teach skills, hire slow, fire fast. You know, it's just, and Susan and I understand it. You know, we're small business people just like you, and just in the last couple of years, we had the same situation. We knew someone wasn't working out, and we should have got rid of them months before we did, but, you know, we just kept hoping things were going to change. You ever have that happen? Boy, I hope that this changes. When you know it's not going to change, if you're sure it's not going to work out, do yourself a favor. Make it happen. Cut them loose. You know, bring in somebody else. Yes, sir.
The biggest problem I have with employees, this is the body, is my born again Christians.
Yeah.
They show up, have outgoing concern, care about your customers. If you don't belong in a church, you're a fearing Egyptian, you're a pagan, you're going to burn in hell forever. And I'm going to add this paper while that one salesperson's outgoing concern, caring, loving, Christians do not apply.
Well, so thank you very much for sharing that, but I'm not going to go there with you. Why don't we just move right along there, sir? But, you know, but you all understand what I'm saying here, right? If you know it's not working, let it go. You know, do yourself a favor. Again, let's go back to why we're talking about all this. You know, I mean, tell me if you agree with this statement. Your front line is your bottom line. You have great people, and you give them the skills. You know, this is about training, it's about sales training, it's about all those things, but you got to have the raw potential. You got to get the right people. You get the right people, and you bring them along the right way, you're going to crush them. You get the wrong people.
You got to make sure, and I know you haven't gotten to this, but if we're not training and coaching, then
That's exactly right. Yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Our job, then we're going to fire them prematurely.
That's exactly right.
Put on us.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to what we talked about earlier. Leadership takes responsibility. If your team isn't everything you want it to be, don't go looking at them. Don't blame society. Don't blame the youth of today. Look in the mirror. So now we're talking about training. And so I believe that this is the single most important concept in staff development. It's called non-negotiable standards. Let me define it for you. It's a standard to which everybody, and I'm suggesting you too, adhere to in exchange for your employment. Quick question for you. How many of you would agree with this statement? That because you give them a paycheck, you have a right to expect them to do things the way that you want them done. Right? Okay, good. Here's how I used to do it. I would ask people to do something and hope that they did it. Does that happen here with anybody? And then when they didn't, I'd get frustrated. Then when I heard this concept, when I heard it for the first time, and actually it was Harry Friedman who introduced me to it, I was like, oh my goodness, that's all I needed. I just needed the words. I just needed to hear it. Oh, that's it. Yes, you will do this. My customers expect nothing less. We need this to happen. You don't do this, that's fine. You don't have a job anymore. So we had incredibly low turnover in our Mackinac City store. But every year, we'd hire the same people, we train the same people, we always bring in a couple new kids, just to keep it moving through. But I'd always say the same thing. McDonald's is paying $3 an hour more than we do. If you don't want to do the non-negotiable standards, just go over there right now because you're not going to last long. Isn't that something? It's so simple. I was speaking to a group of, I spoke for several years in a row for the American Nursery and Landscape Association, their management clinic, which in that industry, is the big event, the big educational event. And the second year that I spoke, I ran into a guy in the airport. And he says, I meant to tell you, Bob, that session you did on non-negotiable standards was the most important thing that happened to our business in the last several years. This guy had a huge business. He had 3 operations. He had a growing operation, a retail operation, and a wholesale operation. Millions, tens of millions of dollars, probably a $50 million a year company. And he said, what we did when I got back from management clinic is we picked 3 non-negotiable standards for each of our 3 divisions. And we made a commitment to those 3 non-negotiable standards, and it changed our business. So I'd like you to think about, where are the opportunities? Where are opportunities? I'll give you a couple of examples of non-negotiable standards. You will attempt to add on to every sale, right? We have impulse items. If everybody asks, we're going to make more sales. You will invite everyone to join our loyalty program. You will, you can also have non-negotiable standards that you will do the open and closing checklist, 2 standards every single day. You can have non-negotiable standards that revolve around behaviors. You will, things that are driving you crazy that you want to eliminate. So non-negotiable standards, powerful, powerful. It changed everything for me. It was the beginning of me being this loosey-goosey, airy-fairy, cool guy who had a cool store manager to, all right, we got something going here, we're going to make it happen, we're going to serve our customers a certain way, we're going to do things a certain way, this business is going to go places and do things. Started with that concept. Now, it would be unfair for me to talk about standards without sort of having a more in-depth conversation. Because most of us, as owners, as managers, as people responsible for people, we think in the language of responsibilities. And responsibilities are what to do. But if you want to be a good trainer, if you want to be a good manager, you have to think in the language of behaviors, which is how to do it. Let me give you an example of this in action. Wash the windows. If I told you, did you say Menzie? Yeah. If I say, Menzie, go wash the windows, Menzie goes and washes the windows, right? The trouble is that everybody's got a different standard for a clean window, right? You get my 17-year-old nephew to wash a window, it's not very clean. You get my mother to wash a window, a bird will fly into that thing because it doesn't see the glass. Big difference. Same responsibility, different execution.
Right.
So, then behavior is how to do it. Let me give you the language for that. You will wash the windows inside and out to the corners and the edges until there are no smudges or streaks, and you put the stuff away. Is that a little clearer? So when we start talking about training, you have to train the language and responsibilities. Otherwise, everybody's going to do it the way that they feel. If you're taking notes, please write this down. If you don't communicate clear, concise standards, everybody has no choice but to create their own. Think about that for a moment. If you're not telling them exactly how it needs to be done, they have to come up with their own definition. They have no choice. Now, let's use a couple of other examples. How many of you have this going on in your store? So, the responsibility is be on time. So the shift starts at 10 o'clock, and so the responsibility is be on time, and it's 9:59 and 38 seconds, and there's a click on the time card, on the clock, right? They're on time. Well, just a second. That's a no, they're not. Because then what they do is then they take off their coats, they have a cup of coffee, they wander around, and probably about 15 to 20 minutes later, they wander out onto the floor. That happened to everybody? Anybody here? You know, so what's really happened is they're stealing 15 or 20 minutes from you. It's not malice, but it is stealing your time. They're being paid for non-productive time. Let's change it to language and behavior. You will be on the floor ready to sell when your shift starts. If you want to have a cup of coffee, be there on time. But when you punch that clock at 10 o'clock, you walk out onto the floor and you're ready to go. You're not wandering around in the stock room. You're there, ready to go. So when we create our training programs, when we create our training manuals, you always have to be conscious of the language you use. You always have to see it through your employees' eyes so that you're saying it and stating it clearly. If it's not written, it's not real. It's a rumor. It ain't, I know. I know. I used to say, if it ain't written, it ain't real. Now I grammatically correct and say, if it ain't written, it ain't real. It's a rumor. And so the biggest challenge, or the biggest part of this whole training process is for you to sit down with your key employees, or for you to sit down with your leadership team and to say, what is important? What do people need to know to be successful in our job? Because if you don't give them the skills to be successful, if you don't give them the information they need, you can't expect them to be successful. Is that correct? Do you agree with that statement? So you can't just sort of do it. I mean, how I used to do it is, as I said, I'd teach them the 3 most popular kites. I'd show them where how the credit card machine worked. I'd show them how the cash register worked, and throw them out there and hope that they'd finally catch it. In fact, we used to say, it takes a full season for someone to finally get it. What kind of stinking thinking was that statement? So everybody I knew who was a first-year employee, how many hundreds of customers did they work with? How many hundreds of customers did they work with and not give them the kind of experience they should have gotten when they came into our store? I mean, unbelievable. The amount of money I lost by poor training is staggering. Staggering. So what we have to do, the beginning of the process is to create a training manual. It has to be written down. It goes like this. You figure out what you want. That's your vision for your store. You know what you want for your store, right? If I sat down with all of you, my guess is if I sat down with you, Bill, and we just sat a little one-on-one, I said, so what do you want your store to be? You can tell me what the music's going to be playing. You're going to tell me how people feel when they come in, what it looks like, the nose of the store. Somebody mentioned the nose. You know, I mean, before I even opened my store, I knew exactly what I wanted it to feel like. It took me about 15 years to get there, but you have that vision. The vision is where it starts. The next part of the process is to say, this is what I know needs to happen for my business to be great. Then you create standards that support the vision. So if you want a nice clean store, if you want a store that looks great all the time, you have standards for the open and closing checklist. If you want your stock room to work the right way, you have standards for how the merchandise comes in the back and how it moves out to the front. You have standards for what happens when there's a receiving discrepancy. You have standards for all these things, right? So it's a vision for how it should work. There are standards that support the vision, and then you train people to those standards so that they do the things that need to happen for your vision to become a reality. I mean, think about that for a second. Think about what your business would be like if it ran just the way you want it to run. Wouldn't that be amazing? Some of you are doing that right now. Most retailers aren't. But it starts with writing it down. It starts with a training manual. And for those, anybody can create a training manual. I created our training manual from scratch. If you want, in the Retail Mastery System, there is a template for a training manual. So all you have to do is drop in the disk and, think about what your dress code is like. Think about what all these things are. So it will take you a fraction of the time to create. Again, you don't have to get the Retail Mastery System to create a manual, but I'm suggesting that you create a manual. So now let's talk about some other thing. This relates to standards, and it's about wiggle words. I love wiggle words. So this is a fun little exercise. What I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, is I'd like you to write these 3 words down on a piece of paper. Probably. Sometimes. And usually. Now, the next thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to assign each of these words a number between 1 and 100. And that number needs to represent what the word means to you. So let's use the example of probably. I will probably desire an ice-cold beer after this day. Probably to me means 85%. So there's no right or wrong answer. Just write down the number that pops to your mind right away. Again, no right or wrong answer. For each of those 3 words, do that, please. No, not with that specific example. No, I mean, some of you don't drink, so that wouldn't apply to you. But no, just what the word means. What the word means. So now what I'm going to do is, because I really want us to be able to spend some time with Q&A and working on your action items. We're just going to use probably, but I'm going to go around and point to people. And if you wouldn't mind sharing your number for probably, it would be appreciated. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. If you don't want to share, that's fine. Just say pass. So, Chris, what do you have for probably?
40.
40.
50.
50.
80.
80. Are you two married? Okay, good. All right, we might come back to you. What do you have? 60. 30. 50. 80. 10. Okay, we'll just stop right there. Because you guys work together, right? All right, so, good. I love doing this with married people, but I don't do marriage counseling, you generally, and when I do, I charge a lot of money. But what? So wait, your name is what?
Rick.
Rick, and your name is Dave. And then you were what? What was your number?
Oh, 80.
80 and you were 10, right? So Rick's a pretty optimistic guy. Dave's pretty skeptical. So Rick is responsible. That's a theoretical situation I'm just sort of creating for us here. So Rick is responsible for the company Christmas party, and he decides that they're going to need 10 meetings to plan this thing. I understand it's a lot, but just bear with me here. So Rick goes up to Dave and says, Dave, you're a fun guy. I'd really like you to be on my committee to plan the Christmas party. Would you do that for me? And Dave says, sure. Rick says, we're going to meet Tuesdays at lunch for 10 weeks. Can you do it? And Dave says, yeah, I'd love to be on your committee, And he says, can you make it? And he says, yeah, I can probably be there. You see what's happening here? So Rick is an 80%er, and Dave is a 10%er. To Rick's definition of the word, Dave is going to be at 8 of the 10 meetings. To Dave's definition of the word, he can miss 9 meetings. See what's going on here? So now what happens? So the first 2 times that Dave misses a meeting, there's no problems. Dave misses a 3rd meeting. Now he's sort of stepping out of Rick's definition of the word, Rick's comfort. By the time that Dave has missed 5 meetings, Rick is becoming annoyed, isn't he? By the time that that Dave has missed 7 meetings, Dave is pissed. Excuse my language. He's really angry about this whole thing. So finally comes to Dave. He's going, Dave, you let me down. What's the deal? You said you could be there. And Dave says, I said I'd probably be there. You see, it's the same word. It's the same situation. They both just talked past each other. And this happens in training all the time. We use these words that are incredibly imprecise, and it leads to poor management, leads to poor training. So what we have to do is we have to diminish these words. In fact, Susan, if you can remember for me, we need to put the wiggle word exercise on this page, because we have a whole list of wiggle words, and it's real interesting to do this with your team. Have everybody write down their definitions. And you know what you're going to find is you're going to find that 2 people who work with each other, or a married couple, all of a sudden one of them's 80, the other one's 30, and you start seeing things like the man's an 80, the man's a 30%er, the woman's an 80%er, and she says, honey, are you going to be home for dinner? And he says, I'll probably be there. So if she's an 80 or 90%er, he's going to be home for dinner. She sets out the candle, does the whole thing. He's a 30%er for probably. He's out bowling with the boys. We've got some problems starting to happen. So, it's real interesting to do this whole thing with a group of people who work together, because you see communication problems and now you can start to adjust to them. So what I'd like you to do right now is think about, what are some other wiggle words that you use in your life all the time? Anybody? Maybe. Maybe's a good one, sure. What, you said maybe also?
Should be.
Should be. Should be is a great one. What's that? Could be, should be, yes, absolutely. I'll try. That's right. That's a great one, Luke. So if you say to me, I'm going to do something, I said, I'll try. If Luke's a 90%er, he's going, this is done. I'm going, I'll try. That's just me being nice. I'm just being a yes man, right? This happens all the time, doesn't it? What else? Sure, good one. Thank you. As soon as possible. How many of you have this on your telephone answering machine? I'll get back to you as soon as possible. You have the wrong person on the end. They're waiting around at their phone for you, right? So here's an action item. Put on your telephone answering machine. We'll get back to you as soon as possible, no later than the end of the workday. Is that a little more precise? You see, when you give people information, they have power, and they can move on with their lives. This is not just a training issue. This is a customer service issue also, isn't it? You have to be incredibly precise. So if I come into your store, what's your name, sir? Erich. So I come into your store and I say, I want to buy this instrument for my son for his birthday, and you don't have it in stock. You say you can order it for me. I go, great. Will you have it in by his birthday, November 2? And you say, yeah, I can probably have it in. What am I thinking? Good, I can cross that off my list. And I come in November 1, and it's not there. Who's unhappy? All of these things we have to start thinking. Great, so what else are some other words?
Normally.
Normally, that's a good one. I've never heard that one before. Good one, great. Most likely, sure, of course.
More often than not.
More often than not. More often than not. How many of you work with a spouse or a family member? Oh, okay, good. I know you're going to love this one. We. Right? Yeah. Am I right? You're driving down the road. We should do that. Who is we? Yeah. Can you tell me?
I took the monkey on my back at that point.
Am I right? So Susan and I have a deal, so when we're driving down the road, we should do that. And, we sort of laugh and say, does that mean I'm going to do it? Or does that mean that you're going to do it? Or are we just having a conversation and nothing's going to come from it?
I'm doing a flyer.
Isn't that funny? But you see how we're starting to think? When you start to train people, if you don't give them good, accurate information, if you don't give them precise information, it's going to go awry. When you give them precise information, it gives them the power to do things correctly. You know, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but it's a famous, I mean, they've got a $24 million business built around a deli. And they built lots of things. But Ari, one of the co-founders, was spoken at our Retail Success Summit. An amazing guy, built an amazing business, written a couple of amazing books. But, you know, he used the example of, you know, you have to give, you know, what you can't do, you have to tell people how it needs to be done. What you can't do, you can't just say, hey, bake me a loaf of sourdough bread today. You have to have the recipe. You have to give them a good recipe to get a good result. I'm not talking about creating robots here. I'm talking about giving people what they need to be successful on the floor of your store so that your customers get the service they deserve. Susan has something to say.
Yeah, I just want to say that there are some, I mean, the wiggle words we talked about, like, you know, probably and as soon as possible, those are pretty easy to identify. There are some wiggle words that are really kind of insidious. So here's an example. My mom called me up the other day. She was in a panic, and she said, Susan, they just called me from church, and they want me to bring a batch of cookies. And I don't know how many is a batch. Does that mean like a sheet of cookies? Does that mean a recipe of cookies? Because I've got some recipes that make 60 cookies and some recipes that only make 24 cookies. But they told me I need to bring a batch of cookies. How many cookies should I bring? You know, so words like batch, that you know what that means to you, but your employees don't know what it means. Those are the words that are going to get you in trouble.
You mean like clean?
Clean. Right? That's exactly. Clean, that's a great wiggle word. That's a new one, another new one. That's great. That is
Or how about green vegetable? We asked my brother to bring green vegetable to dinner the other night, and he's like, what? You like parsley? I'm like, no.
So good. So that's wonderful. But you see, this is what training is all about. Training is about understanding what your customer, what your staff needs to know to do the job the way that you want it done, and communicating it clearly. Precision equals performance. You know, and it all starts with your training manual. Your training manual tells people what to do, how to do it, and it sets your non-negotiable standards. Now, here's something else that's not on the slideshow, but I'm going to go through very quickly. What I learned with our whole yo-yo experience was that if you just have a training manual, people will look at it, they will sign it, but they will never understand it, and they probably haven't read it. So what I recommend to you is you create this manual, and then you create a video of the manual. It's really just a one-sentence or a one-shot wonder. You know, you can easily edit these days, but really it's like, hey, roll it and go through your manual. So what you're doing is you're engaging so many more learning styles. So they're not just reading it, especially with young people, you know, they're very, very visual. They're not just reading it, they're watching it, they're listening to it, they're being involved with you, and that video really gives you an opportunity to show what you're passionate about. You can write the customer is the most important thing in our business, but if they, you know, what's your name, sir? George. I mean, are you the owner? She is? Okay, so Ms. Pinterest. What's your name, ma'am, again? Sheila. So Sheila, I mean, but if they can see your face, and if you go, you know, man, so we exist for our customers, and you know, you get all that way about it, it says something, it means something, it communicates something in a particular way. And that's why that video is so very important. And it's not hard to do. You know, the hardest thing to do is to create the manual, to think about the stuff, to think about the right stuff in the right order and putting it into the right context. You know, again, without trying to sound pitchy, that's why it's one reason to get the retail mastery system, because that template is there. So your training manual, having a video, it becomes so important. Who wants to win the staff development kit from the retail mastery system? All right, very good. Let's talk about it. Susan, do you have them there?
I do.
Okay, so whoever wins this is Susan's favorite kit, by the way. You know, I mean, and it really, if your staff, go ahead, you were going to say something, Don?
Just like the fire people.
She just likes to fire people. There you go.
I did not.
Susan is a great boss. Susan's the president of our company, by the way. I'm just the guy who just travels around and does this. She's the power behind whatever it is. But so you're going to get a much more in-depth look at this whole process that we're talking about in a video on CDs that you can listen to. That workbook is so important. You know, we're not even going to talk about the disciplinary action process, but you're going to get several key templates. You're going to get a template for how to create a Red Hot Help Wanted ad. You're going to get a template for the training manual. You're going to learn about our unique bonus program that we used to, dramatically increase our staff's participation. You're going to get a template for a secret shopper program that you can use. You get the 75 interview questions. We're not going to talk about coaching hardly at all. So, I mean, if you don't have a set of skills or built around staff development, whoever wins this is going to be able to really do great things. And of course, we're going to give away 2 more tickets to the Retail Success Summit. All right, what do we have, Susan?
All right. Mazak Music.
All right, there you go.
Please. All right. Wonderful.
Congratulations. All right.
And the summit tickets go to Legend Music, Doug John.
All right, Doug. Thank you, sir. There's a group and grin. All right. So real quickly, for those of you, because 6 people won today. If you won, you can either take $200 and you choose to invest in the Retail Mastery System. You can either take a payment off or take $200 off. We don't want to penalize you for winning, of course, and we'd still love to have you be part of our community. So, having said that, boy, you've spent a lot of time with me today, and I see a couple people are starting to yawn and things like that. So what I'm going to do for coming down the stretch, before we come down the stretch, I'm going to share my favorite way for you to get money quickly. Who would like to know how to get money quickly? Yes? All right, stand up and I'll share it with you. Stand up. Okay, stand up. There you go. Face this way. All right? Now take your right hand and raise it up in the air and shake it a little bit. Now take it and put it in the back hand or the back pocket of the person in front of you and remove their wallets. All right, you can sit down. That was not an excuse for inappropriate behavior, by the way. That's right.
We didn't get it.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so coming down the stretch, let's talk about coaching them. So you see how if you've done what we've talked about here so far, you are so far ahead of 98% of your competition. Most people do like I did. You hire a musician, you throw them on the floor, and you hope that they do a good job. If you make the investment in the process that I'm recommending, you've found raw talent, you've interviewed it skillfully, you've picked the right people, you've trained them correctly so that they have the skills they need to do great things, and away you go. But then it's not enough. You really have to coach them. You have to bring it farther. And it's a combination of skills development, rewards, and accountability. Reward. Let's talk about rewards quickly. Of course you pay people, but this is retail, so you probably don't pay them outlandish amounts of money. Can we make that assumption? But it's not always about money. In fact, it's not usually about money. They wouldn't be working for you if it was about money. So what we have to do is we really have to reward them in other ways. We have to listen to them. We have to show them that we care about them. We have to give them some attention. We have to nurture them. We have to make sure that they feel wanted and loved. We have to give them the skills they need. And we have to coach them. People love feedback. They love to know if they're doing a good job. And, again, in the retail, in the staff development kit, there's a whole section on coaching. I'm just going to share with you the single most effective coaching technique that I know of. And it's called the one-sentence wonder. And it goes like this. You go out on the floor and you catch people doing something right. So, your name, sir, Bill? Bill, thank you so much for picking up the trash when you came into the store. So now what happens? You see, one sentence. I just mentioned something specific in one sentence. So what happens is Bill goes, hey, Bob noticed that I picked something up on the way in. So the next time he walks into the store, what's he going to do? He's going to look around. And not only that, but Will sees me talking to Bill, and Will goes, hey, Bob noticed that. So one sentence, you know, and especially, you know, we're talking about reinforcing appropriate, proper sales behaviors. It's things like, Aubrey, you know, I love the way you kept asking questions. You know, you really kept, I mean, you could tell that you were just so concerned about that customer. Nice work. And Aubrey goes, yeah, I'm going to ask some more questions. So you're constantly reinforcing the proper behaviors. And this also forces you to focus on what's going on the floor. One of the things that I know for a fact is that we all get caught up in all the stuff that goes on in our business, when in actuality what happens that's most important to our business is happening on the floor, right? So it forces you to pay attention to the floor. We did this many, many years ago. We sent it out as a tip of the week, and somebody emailed me back with this suggestion. By the way, honey, that person was at the Retail Success Summit and came up and told us that she was the person who suggested this. Start every day with 10 pennies in your left-hand pocket. Every time you catch somebody doing something right, move a penny to the right-hand pocket. Imagine the positiveness that you would push out into your business by giving 10 compliments a day. Now, real quickly, a way to make this more powerful, you have to be careful, is a light touch on the shoulder or the elbow. So if I say, Amy, I love the way, you see, Amy, now, so, you know, just that light touch, that light touch, nothing inappropriate now, that light touch makes a huge difference. And the people who respond to it positively, really, I mean, it totally amplifies what you're doing. So some people are leaders. And if they lean into you when you touch them, boy, oh boy, that's a wonderful thing, because it means that your coaching is getting through at a very, very deep level. Now, some people don't like to get touched. You touch them and they lean away. That's all right. Don't touch them. Everybody's different, but that's just a little technique to really, really make it more powerful. And then finally, expect but inspect. It's so important that you do this. You know, one of the things that I recommend to all of our best clients is that you have a secret shopper program in place. I'm looking at all of you, and I know that I've given you a lot of things to think about, but I'm telling you that if you had your store shopped twice a week with a simple secret shopper program, your customer experience would go up dramatically. You know, and so we're not going to get into the details because I want to make sure that you've got a couple minutes to work on your action items, but there is a secret shopper program that you can institute yourself in the Retail Mastery System. And, you know, think about it. You don't know what's going on. I mean, I'm just looking at you all and telling you for a fact. I'm not wagging a finger, but you don't know what's going on in your store when you're not there. You know, you have a video and that helps you see some things, but until you get objective feedback from people who aren't employed by you, it becomes tough. Yes, you're going to say something?
Are you saying trust but verify?
Yeah, exactly. Trust but verify. Same thing. Same thing. So that's that. And finally, if they can do the job but don't, it's a question of willingness. So I was a waiter for 12 years at fine dining restaurants. For 8 years, I was a superb waiter. People had an amazing experience. For 4 years, I dialed it in. People didn't get, I mean, I was all right, but they didn't get what they came for. How many of you have a superstar, somebody who was great and is no longer great? Dialing it in. No way? Okay, a couple people here. You know, and this is your challenge.
I fired him last week.
You fired him last week, all right. But you know, this is your challenge. Your challenge is to take those people and either get them back up to speed or let them go. Real quickly. Some of you are thinking, how do I push the reset button? I like the way you're thinking about staff development, Bob, but I've got some people who have worked for me for 20 years, and if I went back and said, here are our new non-negotiable standards, there'd be mutiny on the bounty. Anybody thinking that? Here's what you do. You bring them all in for a mandatory meeting. And you put a goal up on the board. You say, look, you know, here's the deal. I want us to take our business to the next level. I want our customer experience to be superb. I want you to have more fun. I want everything about this business to be more vibrant and better. So you put the goal up. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a training program so that everybody knows exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it, and everybody's going to have more fun. So you make it about the benefits to your staff, not you're driving me crazy. And if things don't change around here, you know, it's like, hey, we're going to make this happen. And so the goal would be, so what town are you in? Smyrna. So you say the goal is to be the best music store in Smyrna, Tennessee, or your county, or whatever it is. And then you say, you tell me, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? And your staff will give you the ideas. They know what to do, right? They know how to do it. And so you put down all those ideas on the board. And you say, good, that's great, that's great. You know, you're running a meeting. It's your business. You have a right to pick the standards that are going to end up in the thing. But get their feedback. Bring them into the process. Make them feel like they belong to the process. And they should belong to the process. You should be actually listening to them. And then you go back and you create version number 1 of your training manual. You go back and you take all their ideas that you want to keep, the ones that you don't want to keep, you know, you explain them away, and then that's version 1, and you put it out to your team and you say, look, take a look at this, because when, you know, we're going to keep working on this till it works for everybody, and then it becomes the law of the land. The non-negotiable standards are the non-negotiable standards. And here's what's going to happen. Some people are going to really participate in the process, and some people are going to fight against the process. Just understand it's going to happen. But then what will happen then is that after a week or two, get everybody's feedback, you come back with version 2. And version 2 is usually all that needs to happen. Sometimes there needs to be 3 versions, but that then becomes the law of the land. This is how we do it. So that's your new training manual. You create the video, you get everybody together, and you go through the training program, and then your non-negotiable standards are your non-negotiable standards, and away you go. Here's what's going to happen. If you do that process, you will lose a couple of people. People love the status quo. But I'm looking at you and saying from experience that if you're really serious about taking your business, if you're here now, you're serious about taking it there now, the people who don't want to come with you to here need to go away. But here's what will happen is that the people who come along, who participate, who want that, are going to excel. And because you're building a better business, you're going to attract better people. And you're going to attract better customers. And coming from the assumption that your front line is your bottom line, you're going to make more money and everything's going to work the way it's supposed to. I've seen it happen again and again and again. And from my own experience, when you get to that place, you make those commitments, you do that training, all of a sudden, that's when things start to click. You're making money, you've got cash, your staff is doing all these things that make you so proud. When people come up to you and say, I was at your store, you don't shrink away and say, oh, I hope it worked out all right. All of those things happen. Good things happen. So we have action items, but you know what? Since we only have 10 minutes left, I think what I'd rather do is I'd like to leave you on your own for creating your action item list. We have about 10 minutes left for Q&A and sort of to wrap things up. I strongly, you know, I'm so honored that you gave me a day of your life. You know, that you came here and gave me a day of your life. And there would be nothing that I'd rather see more than for you to take this day and turn it into something special for your business, to see that 15, 20, 30% business increase. But the best way to do it is for you to do the action item list. So when you leave here today, go back to your room, get together with your team, and say, what do we need to do? What are the top 10 things? What are the top 3 things? Okay? Fair enough? So questions, comments, anything? We've got about 5 minutes here. Yes, sir.
You said we will get a copy of the slides?
Yes, you will get a copy of the slides. Here's what we will do. Cosby, we will create a special page for all of you. Cosby will send out...
I'll email you guys out first, probably Monday of next week. We'll get back in the office. I'll email a link to this page you create for us. I'll have a link to the slides and everything.
Yes. So you'll get all the slides, you'll get Management One's information, you'll get the wiggle word things, you know, so you'll get all that. So yes.
Will that go to the email that was registered to you all from us?
Now say it again.
Will that be sent to us through the email that's registered?
No, that Cosby will send that to you.
What email addresses are you using? The ones from the cards or the ones that's from the registration?
Registration.
Right, that was my question.
Yeah, so through the registration. Okay, fair enough, good. Yes?
I would like to give you an unsolicited endorsement.
Oh, thank you. All right, sure. Well, let's stand up.
Well, I bought the program. I bought the program on January or December the 30th.
Oh, okay.
Because you suggested that I buy it so I could write it off against last year's taxes. And, well, it was a good idea.
Yeah, that's marketing, right?
A little money, you know. But my business has been on the grow for we're about 24 months where we've been beating last year's numbers consistently. Right now we're 26 points ahead of last year. And some of that is, you know, a direct result of just, all I've done is listen to the CDs on most of the modules. And the thing that I have found is that I didn't get into this business because I'm a business.
You know, Jonathan, go stand at that microphone, please, because the people behind you can hear.
Well, what I was saying was I didn't get into this business because I'm a business person. And a lot of us don't know really how to do business. And with the help that's in those modules, I've started to realize some things that I was doing that was making my job 1,000 times harder. Like one of the first things I did was I hired a bookkeeper. Been doing my books by myself for 12 years. Okay? We have 300 students a week that walk through the front door of my store. It was a nightmare. Okay? You're talking about burning a candle. And so that was the first thing I did. And she's part-time. She comes in as a subcontractor and has given me enough time so I can play golf on Thursdays now. You know? Those little things. So where I have a little bit of a life. And so I just, you know, I think that it's a great program.
Thank you.
And, you know, the information is there. I load it in my iPod. I listen to it while I'm walking my dog. And that stuff, it just creeps in, you know, and it works.
Good.
And so I just wanted to give you that endorsement.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You know, it really is about skills. Oh, that's okay. It really is about skills. Thank you very much for saying that. You know, if you want to get where you want to go faster, the first step of it is finding out what to do. I have a formula. It goes like this. RI, the right information, which is, you know, you got a lot of the right information here today. You got a taste of the information. Not all of the information and not as deep as we could go, but that's just the way it is, right? We only had a day. The right information, knowing what to do, plus FA, RI plus A, FA, focused action equals BD, big dollars. And so if you want to get your business someplace quicker, the first thing to do is to find out what needs to be done. Susan and I do this all the time. We invest a lot of money in seminars, in courses, and things like that. When we run into a problem, the question is always, where's the answer? Because the answer is someplace, especially with the internet. I mean, the answer is many places. It's not just the retail mastery system, but the retail mastery system was created for you. It was for independent retailers. It's very, very specific to you, so thank you. So other questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry.
You said earlier that you were going to talk about the May I Help You?
The May I Help You? Oh, with selling.
Yeah, sales.
Sure. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to give you the 3-minute sales seminar. Okay? So most people go up to somebody and say, may I help you? And of course the answer is no. What I teach is a very, very systematic process. And this is what your people need to know. They need to know, they need to do the same thing over and over and over again. And then when it becomes habit, then they can start to riff. You know, to use the analogy in music, it's like jazz. You know, you don't improvise until you're solid. And the same thing with selling. So it goes like this. First there's a greeting, and the greeting is about establishing a relationship. It's not about, may I help you? It's about, that's a wonderful bracelet you have. Where did you get that? It's about the weather. It's about all these things. And then once you've established that quick relationship, then there's this thing called, then there's questioning and listening. And there's this thing called a key question, which is a question that transitions the salesperson into a conversation about why they're there. They're in a music store for a reason, right? You know, I mean, they're there. What's that? You know, yeah, what do you play or something like that. And, you know, I mean, again, I'm giving the super short version. But so once you get that information, then it becomes a much more intense questioning and listening. And, you know, that's when you get to the perfect purchase. That's when you start, you know, asking all the questions like, what kind of sound do you want to produce? Who do you play with? Do you play with yourself? Do you play with a band? If you play with a band, how many people? You know, all these questions, because remember I talked about your mantra. The more you know, the better you serve. The better you serve, the more you'll sell. You know, and sometimes, you know, to Jonathan's statement to me at a break, sometimes when you ask the right questions, you'll actually sell less. Like he was talking about doing a $500 modification on a $100 guitar. Sometimes that happens, but at the end of the day, it always works itself out, because when you do that, your customers are going to respond, right? They're going to know that you're in it for them, and then they become, the lifetime value increases. So it's questioning and listening, asking all the right questions, getting to the bottom of it. Then there's adding on, making sure that they have everything they need. You don't send somebody home with a guitar without extra strings and a tuner and all these, you know what it is better than me. I'm just making it up off the top of my head. Then there's closing, and that's a very specific skill that nice people don't want to do. This is a training issue, isn't it? Somebody has come in, you're ready to spend $3,000 with me, you just need me to help